Hey friends, and welcome back to Halfway to Healing. I'm Shana.
And I'm Sam. Today we're talking about something very close to my heart, something that is very widely misunderstood and definitely still surrounded by shame, and that is addiction.
This episode isn't about judgment, it's about survival, self-soothing, and the very human reasons people turn to substances to cope.
We'll be diving deep into addiction, more specifically my journey with addictions, from what it did to my brain, how it felt in my body, in my heart, and in my relationships. Because addiction is not just about bad choices, but rather about pain and what we do with it when we feel like we have nowhere else to turn.
We'll also be talking about the messy, non-linear process of healing and what life looks like after addiction, when you're stuck in that in-between place of grieving what used to help you survive. So let's dive in. Okay, so Sam, this is sort of more, I don't want to say like focused for you, but more like an answering and question one, just because I don't have that history, experience. Yeah. So obviously only share what you're comfortable and stuff.
I will, don't worry.
With. Yeah.
Me and my oversharing tendencies, though, might disagree.
Yeah. So I think maybe a good place to start would maybe be like sharing your sort of story of addiction and like how old you were and how, because I know it did for you, it did progress like to more, I don't want to say like intense substances, but harmful. Yeah.
Look,
So take it away.
At the end of it, I got to heroin. Yeah, that's, I think, a fair way to put it, because didn't start. So, yeah, I started drinking when I was about 10 years old. I remember I was at my mum's 30th birthday party. She had like this masquerade birthday party thing, like a very themed birthday party. And for whatever reason, I was the bartender. And for whatever reason, I could not tell you what compelled me to do this, but I was skimming all of these adults' alcoholic drinks that I was making all night. It was a very long time ago, so I don't know why this urge kind of popped up, that I was like, you know what would be really fun? If I skim the drinks of all these adults all night. Don't know what compelled me to do that, but I did it. And I unlocked this part of me that made me feel normal and made me feel like I could fit in. It was very compelling, and I wanted to keep going with that. When I was young, I dealt with a lot of health problems. I dealt with a lot of social issues. I didn't really fit in socially. And when I started drinking at such a young age, I could suddenly do these things that I didn't think I could do at all.
Right.
And I think it very much unlocked this addictive personality part of my brain. I spent the next few years just drinking here and there. Nothing like, I don't want to say super problematic, but 10-year-olds drinking is problematic.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. But when I got chronically sick at 13 and doctors didn't know what was wrong with me, and I was in a lot of pain all the time, I was then prescribed benzodiazepines and opioid medication that I very quickly learnt also did the same things that drinking at the time unlocked for me as well. And this might come as a shock, but a lot of the controlled substances now weren't controlled substances until about 2018. So, we're talking 2013 here. I could just kind of get away with just taking these substances, and all of it was prescribed. To me, I just was not taking it as prescribed. So a lot of my early years of addiction was alcohol, was prescription medication. I smoked cigarettes as well, but really it was very much limited based on what I could get my hands on. The legal age is 18 for alcohol, for cigarettes. So it wasn't a lot. It was what could I manage to steal essentially from my parents' liquor cabinet and get away with stealing. But then when I turned 18 and suddenly I can go and buy whatever I want from the shops, I can go to clubs, I can do all these things, it unlocked this, I don't have a better way to call it than party mode. Because I would go I was at the time dating a dealer as well, but I could go to a club and get my drinks for free by flirting or whatever. But then also people would invite me back to houses, hotel rooms or whatever to do other illicit substances. And so so then I was basically, you name it and I've done it.
Wow.
So that's kind of what started, and it was very much filling this void in me of I don't know how to socialize, I don't know how to cope with the physical pain that I'm dealing with, the emotional pain that I'm dealing with. There is a lot of trauma in my history as well, both with people and the medical system, and I was essentially self-medicating. I had all these mental health and physical health struggles and couldn't get the help that I needed, and the only way that I could do that was through substances.
Right.
Now that's problematic.
Yeah.
I partied hard. I partied like no tomorrow, to the point where I got told 3 months before my 20th birthday that if I kept going the way that I was going, I would die. That was it. That was
oh my
the end.
gosh.
And the doctors told me to come off of all of these substances cold turkey.
Oh gosh.
Some of it is fine to come off cold turkey.
Okay, that's what was going to be my question.
Yeah, some of it fine. Not all of the substances I was on were fine to come off cold turkey. As I mentioned earlier, I was on benzodiazepines, and they are incredibly dangerous. Them and opioids, incredibly dangerous to come off of cold turkey. And I remember the first few weeks of me not being on them, and I had the worst tremors. And my heart was racing. I honestly kind of wanted to die. That's how bad it was. And I remember sitting in a coffee shop with my then partner, and he's like, you're basically vibrating. Like, you are shaking so much. Like, what is happening? And I'm like, I don't feel very good.
Oh my goodness.
I'm like sitting there shaking. Incredibly dangerous. There's a lot of protocols to go when you come off of especially prescription pills. That just weren't implemented for me. I don't know why. When I was 19, I did quit drugs. I was clean for 4 years before I relapsed, but I was still drinking a lot. Yeah. And I struggled a lot more and a lot of it had to do with access. Yeah. When I got clean the first time, I broke up with my then partner, who was a dealer. I didn't have access to the drugs anymore. I was homeless. I couldn't really afford to go clubbing or out to bars, but I was buying a lot of alcohol, and I drank a lot of alcohol. And really, it got a bit out of control. Wow. Does that kind of answer your question? I don't know.
It absolutely does. So from what you were saying, it sounds like, you started, I don't want to say like casually drinking, just whenever you could when you were around 10. And then it sounds like it really took off quite exponentially from like when you were like 18, 19.
Yeah, I mean...
And then, you go.
It's really weird. So when I was a teenager, before I hit 18, I would often sneak out, and like there were several times between 14 and probably about 16 where I was drinking and doing pills, so much so that cops were getting involved.
Oh wow, gosh.
Yeah. And but instead of being arrested and taken to a station, I had to be shipped to emergency because I'd done so much. I needed to get my stomach pumped.
My goodness.
So when I got sick and was dealing with a lot of problems at school when I was about 14, that's really when it kind of took off and just blew up from there. I went on school exchange when I was in year 11 and was doing drugs and drinking over there, and I got suspended. And I remember sitting when I got home, we're sitting with one of the heads of schools, and he's like, you need rehab.
Oh my goodness. That's actually crazy. Wow.
But it definitely, once I turned 18 and I had so much easy access to it, absolutely it took off more. But I don't want to like discount the fact that it was already bad before I got to that point.
Right. Gotcha.
With the cops and ambulances and suspensions, like it was not my high schooling years. I barely remember my high schooling years because I was just drunk or high and malnourished at the same time from my eating disorder. I don't really know how I graduated high school at all, to be honest with you, because it was just so much foul play on my end. I was not treating my body or my mind very well. Yeah.
So it was it had already been bad for years, but I guess it was more, I don't want to say like acceptable, but once you're like legally an adult.
But it is more acceptable because people expect 18-year-olds to go and party. No one's really batting an eye anymore if I'm going to a party and, you know, doing whatever. Because that's expected of a young adult, newly 18. Nobody really is batting an eye when young people party. Yeah, it's crazy. And
it's a lot easier to get a hold of these substances because you legally can buy alcohol and well, not per se, but
no, absolutely. And it's more socially acceptable. It's a lot easier to, I struggled a lot more with alcohol than I did with drugs. And at least in my experience, I tended to not touch drugs unless I had been drinking.
Right.
It always started with drinking.
Gotcha.
Even actually exactly a year ago today, and just for people, we're recording this on the 7th of August. A year ago today, I started drinking, and that's what led me to go to someone's house and do all these drugs. Like, if I hadn't have started drinking, I wouldn't have left my house, done heroin. It just wouldn't have happened. And actually, we're doing this kind of special episode.
Yeah.
Because tomorrow, 6 a.m. on the 8th of August is my sober birthday. So
woo,
1 year.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah.
That's so huge. I'm so
really
proud of you.
I'm proud of me too. It's been a long year.
It's been the longest you've been able to go.
It is, yeah.
Since like what, 10?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
I think
amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah, we're going to have a little celebration tomorrow.
Yeah, I know. I'm so excited.
It's be so good. Back to
whatever we were talking about.
Back on track, I guess. So I'm just going to touch just for a little moment just on the substances again. So from what I have heard and what I sort of know about you, it sounds like when you were 19, being told from your doctors, if you continue down this path, you won't survive. Would you say that was quite a big like turning point or shock for you to stop specifically the substances?
Oh, it definitely was for the drugs. It was, I didn't think alcohol was a problem. Again, I was like, every young person drinks. That's not, I don't have a problem there. But definitely with like the drugs that I was on, that was like a very pivotal moment where I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing all these drugs. But I continued to drink for years after that. It wasn't until July of 2023 when what happened was I didn't like to drink alone. I drank alone. Don't get me wrong. I drank alone. I mean, I drank from 7 a.m. until I fell asleep at night. And sometimes I don't sleep. So I drank alone, but I didn't like this idea that I was drinking alone. So I often would invite people out or hang out with friends and everything to kind of give myself an excuse, like a socially acceptable reason to drink. Yeah. And I remember there was a few weeks where I was constantly messaging this one friend of mine, being like, let's do something, let's go out, let's get completely fucked up, and then constantly agreeing to it. I remember there was this one night, I don't even fully remember it, but what I remember is I got so sick and I was throwing up in their bathroom. I needed to go home. I didn't know how I was getting home because my then partner didn't actually know where I was or what I was doing, and I didn't want him to know. And I was so sick, and it was awful. It was a mess. And I was doing really hurtful things to this friend of mine. I ended up calling a bunch of people, including my ex, and being like, just pick me, like, can you just pick me up? No questions asked. I don't want to get into it. And the next morning I woke up, my friend had sent me a message that was like, I don't know what the fuck that was, but you need help. And at the same time as that, I realized I was spending about $1,000 a month on dollar bottles of wine.
Gosh.
Like
that's a lot of alcohol.
That's a lot of alcohol, because at my work, I worked at Coles, if you went to Liquorland, you could get a percentage, and it was like 20% off of wine. Yeah. Like, it was a huge discount. I don't know if they still do that. I haven't worked at Coles for a really long time. So I was paying like $1, maybe $2 for each bottle of wine that I got, and I'm spending $1,000 on that alone, plus whatever I'm going to the bars and getting for free. Yeah. That, and my friend being like, the fuck did you do? Yeah. And filling me in on the night. I still can't remember what what he'd said to me, but my friend was like, this is what you did, what the fuck. And that was like this huge thing for me. I was like, those two things, I thought that was my like rock bottom. Turns out it was not. Yeah. But that was the defining moment where I knew alcohol was a problem.
Right. So that was like a very like pivotal moment where where you sort of realized that you had a problem, would you say?
Oh yeah, that's when I was like, oh yeah, I've got a problem. If this person is saying this and I'm spending this much, I have got a problem. In that time, I also relapsed. So I was nearly 4 years clean, and I was going through my house and I found some drugs that I just stashed somewhere.
Yeah.
And I relapsed on the drug. Like it was like this whole thing where I was like, yeah, I need to look at my life.
Yeah. Wow. So I know from like what you've told me how like you said you didn't like drinking in secret, but I know from what you've told me that you would, and you'd feel a lot of shame. Do you mind talking a bit about that? Like you'd do it in secret.
Yeah.
Because you didn't want your then partner to know? But
I didn't want anybody to know how much I was drinking, which now that I look back on it is like, of course you had if you don't want anyone to know how much you're drinking, you've probably got a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to, like when I went to bars, I would order like 2 drinks. They'd be a double. I'd drink, basically shot one at the bar.
Wow.
And then take my next double to my friends. And so everyone would think that I'd had one drink. I wouldn't tell them it was a double. I wouldn't tell them that I'd already had a double at the bar. And I'd do that every round. So I would get to the point where I'm basically passed out from drinking, and everyone's like, you've had like 4 drinks.
Yeah. Would your friends and like these people you were going out with just think you were like a lightweight?
Yeah. Most people just thought I was a lightweight, and but really they've thought I've had 4 drinks and I'm passed out, but really
you've had double the amount.
You know, like, but to actually answer your question about shame, I don't know why I don't know why I was so ashamed from it, other than I mean,
but that makes sense.
I just didn't want people to know. I didn't want people to judge me. I didn't want people to step in. I think a big of it was as well, like if everyone knows this is what I'm doing, then people might stop, and I didn't want to stop my behavior, and if other people know what I'm doing, they might try and stop it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I imagine, I don't know, I feel like it's weird because being like both of us being in Australia and being Australians, I feel like drinking is such a big part of like our culture and like history and stuff. So like, I don't know, is there a way that you would like, obviously before you reach this not rock bottom, that you're like, it's just everyone in Australia is a big drinker because it's such a big thing here? Or were you sort of like, I think maybe I have this thing, but maybe not because everyone in Australia drinks so much? If that makes sense?
No, that makes sense. I used to joke that I was an alcoholic all the time.
Right.
I'd be like, of course I'm drinking heaps. I'm a fucking alcoholic.
Yeah.
But never on a level where I was like, this is a problem. It was always like this kind of tongue-in-cheek jesty thing that I would do where I'd be like, yeah, of course I'm going to down this bottle of wine. Like, you know, but I don't think anything specifically had anything to do with the fact that Australians are big drinkers, other than it just gave me an excuse.
Right.
Like, everyone wants to go and have drinks after work. Sure, I'm in.
Yeah.
Of course I'm in. After uni, count me in.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't necessarily anything where I thought it could be used to justify my behavior, but rather just another reason. Like, you know, like, of course we're going to drinks after work or after uni or whatever it may be. It did make getting sober harder.
Right.
Because it's so like culturally acceptable.
Yeah.
That in my sobriety, it's a lot harder to be like, it's Christmas time, everyone's having, you know, scotches and cocktails and beers and whatever. You know what? I'm good. Like, it's harder in my sobriety because of the culture, as opposed to me using it as a reason in my active addiction.
Right. I see. So when you were actively in your addiction, what, I guess, was your, I want to say like average week or something? Because I know you personally, I know you said that throughout the week you actually wouldn't drink and you'd like go on these binges on the weekend. What was that sort of like?
So
how did you...
look, at the end of my addiction, it was very much 24/7. The only thing that really stopped me from drinking was if I knew I had to drive. drive.
Right.
I am very, very anti-drink and driving. Like, I don't even really like people having one drink and driving.
Yeah.
That is, I think it's so dangerous. I think it puts other people's lives at risk. So quite often, and I mean a big portion of this, I didn't drive. I didn't have a car, or I wasn't driving, or whatever it may be. At the worst of my addiction, like I said, I would get up at like 7 in the morning, and I'd go and have cruiser, whatever it was, for breakfast. Not a great breakfast. Wouldn't recommend it.
No.
And just, do that. Some days I could push it back to 5. Like some days if I knew I had a meeting, or if I needed to do something that I thought was important, I could be like, I'm not going to drink until 5.
Yeah.
And I could always be sober long enough if I knew that I was going to have another drink.
Right.
So I could get to 5 o'clock because I knew as soon as 5 o'clock hit, I was getting...
Right.
But then I had this mentality of like, I didn't drink for 8 hours. I'm going to catch up on that 8 hours of drinking.
Yeah.
The longer that I stayed sober in my active addiction, the way, like if I wasn't drinking Monday to Thursday, that weekend is not there.
Right.
Because I felt the need to catch up on all of on all the drinks that I had missed.
Yeah, wow.
So, if I had a medical appointment on a Tuesday afternoon, I wouldn't drink until after that appointment. But I do remember there were a few times where I would have the appointment in the city and I'd go straight to a bar. My appointment ended at 3. At 3:05, I'd be in a bar drinking to catch up on all of the drinks that I'd missed that day because I had an appointment. So, while technically, yes, I could go short bursts where I wouldn't drink during the week or I wouldn't drink during the day, I think that was more detrimental because on the days that I started drinking at 7, it was a lot more paced.
Yeah.
I remember one day I was waiting for my ex to come home for whatever reason, and I drank 4 bottles of wine in the span of 45 minutes.
Oh gosh.
Because I knew once he came over, I wasn't drinking anymore. And so I was like, I'll just do all my drinking in these 45 minutes it takes him to come over.
Wow.
I was incredibly sick. I don't remember that night.
Yeah.
Wouldn't recommend all of that in 45 minutes. Like I was so sick.
So I know you were talking about how you very much don't drink and drive. Well, you didn't. Was there any times when your drinking and addiction would cause or did cause harm to like yourself or anyone, or
I mean, absolutely
an object
myself.
or anything?
Absolutely myself.
Oh gosh.
Alcohol is a poison. No. Sorry. I caused a lot of damage. I damaged a lot of relationships. I was also in relationships, platonically and romantically, that were damaging for me because of like joined addictions and a little bit of codependency.
Yeah.
But I did a lot of damage. I said a lot of things that I didn't mean. It caused a lot of problems in my family. In 2019, just before all of the hospital and they were like, you're gonna die and all that jazz, I got to the point where I was punching walls and putting my head through them.
Wow.
Can't even remember if it was from withdrawal or if I was just that hopped up on drugs.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of years damaging the relationships with my parents. I mean, I stole a lot of alcohol from them. I damaged, like when I was in Argentina, them getting a call in what was the middle of the night to be like, your child is fucked right now. There was a lot of damage I did, especially with people that I loved and cared about. A lot of people that knew me in some of my worst addictions, I'm not friends with anymore. Either that's because they have their own addiction problems and weren't supporting me in my recovery, or it was because I just burnt that many bridges.
Right.
So my now partner, a year ago, I didn't call my now partner to let her know that I was going through a difficult time, that I had these addictions. I was about 2 months sober before I went out, and I remember after I did all of the drugs, literally all of the drugs, and got absolutely wasted. I remember walking back to one of the bus stations so that I could get like the last night bus home, or like the first bus of the day, or it was a Friday. So one of the really early buses home, and I remember messaging her and being like, I've really like royally fucked up here. I don't want you to hate me. And I texted this to her. I still didn't call. I was I was so shameful and so scared that she was gonna be like, I can't do this anymore.
Right.
It wasn't the first time I'd relapsed. It wasn't the first time any of this, but there was this horrible feeling that I had, and a lot of fear that I had in telling her, and I knew I needed to tell her. And so I sent this massive long paragraph of like, this is what I did. I totally get it if you don't ever want to speak to me again, but fuck, basically. It was like I don't know what to do here. And she and I, when she woke up, had a very long and very hard conversation that rattled me and has probably kept me going for the last year.
That's good.
And that is, I think, the scariest part of it. Was I care about her a lot. She is my best friend of ever. And the fact that I don't want to say was willing, but was willing to throw that out to get drunk and high is kind of a terrifying thought for me. And I don't know what I would have done if she had kind of taken me up on my offer of like, see ya. It is a terrifying feeling when you're ready, when you're sitting there unwittingly burning bridges. And I've done it a lot. I spent a lot of my teenage years doing that. There were a lot of people that I really cared about growing up that I still care about to this day, because just because we're not friends and we don't talk doesn't mean I don't care. That I just burned because I was more interested in a fix than I was in maintaining relationships. So yeah, I've damaged a lot of things. Physical property and relationships.
Wow. So when you did start try and get sober and you did tell people and you're like, hey, well, I don't know how you go about that. Do you just be like, hey, I'm an alcoholic? Or how did people react? Did they like treat you differently, or were they like, did you start getting like not invited to certain things because drinking would be involved? How did people react in different people? Or did some people sort of expect it? Or
by the time I was like properly serious about it, the people in my life were pretty supportive, and I think also knew that I had a bit of a problem, so were more grateful than anything else. Like nobody really tried to pressured me into drinking. My family don't always understand it, but thankfully I'm surrounded by people now. Like, I mean, I have sober events, which has nothing to even do with my sobriety. It's just I don't want to look after drunk people in my house.
Fair enough.
That's what it has nothing to do with the fact that I think I'm gonna have a drink if someone else is drinking. It's just I don't want to. It's my party, and I don't want to look after a drunk person.
Exactly. Fair enough.
And people still come. Like nobody. It's not really a thing that I have to think about too much. In my early sobriety, like when I got clean, my ex wasn't supportive of it, but more in he didn't want to get sober himself. So it did kind of cause some issues with our relationship. Just because boundaries weren't being like, I wasn't even like, you need to get sober. I just was like, don't do this around me. And that couldn't be met, and it's one of the many reasons we didn't work out. But for the most part, people have been very supportive.
That's good.
No one's really pushed me into any direction, and but also I did really have a problem, so I think people were just grateful that I wasn't killing myself slowly anymore.
And it sounds like you are surrounded by people and family that you're surrounded by people that you want to be surrounded by as well. So like if someone has a problem with like you with like all these health problems you have, well, you don't want to be associated with them anyway,
Exactly.
And I try and think the same of that for myself as well. I think that makes sense. I think might go just touch a bit on like the healing process and then might wrap up. So
sounds good.
How did you like start your healing process, and what does healing look like for you, and what do you do to manage those, I want to say, urges and thoughts?
I still deal with cravings and urges. I still have days where I'm like, fuck, I really want to drink right now. And I'm nearly a year sober. In like 12 hours, I'll be a year sober.
It's so exciting.
I think the biggest thing is actually I've gotten a lot better at reaching out to people when I'm not doing well. And having a good support network around me makes it a lot easier to deal with it, where I'm like, fuck, I feel like having a drink. I'm just gonna call someone instead. And usually talking to someone and talking about, I don't know, cats or the weather or what's happening. Like by the time, or sometimes I just go to bed. I'm like, you know what? I'm probably just tired. Let's get some sleep. I don't really know. I think I just kind of take it a day at a time. I don't think about when it comes to drinking, I'm not thinking about or trying not to think about what I've got to do all week or whatnot. Don't get me wrong, I still do that to like plan my week, but like I don't know, it's with the substances, it's very much like I take it one day at a time. As long as I don't drink today, then it's fine. I don't have to, like, if I drink tomorrow, that's a tomorrow problem, but if I don't drink today, that's enough.
I think that's a great way of looking at it. Like, just get through today. Tomorrow's another thing.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you'd like to, I guess, if there's anyone listening, would you like to share anything with them if they might be struggling with addiction or trying to get sober or anything?
I just, like, I feel it's really important to mention. I was trying to get sober from 2023. I relapsed so many times. Like, I don't even know how many times I relapsed. And so I think the best thing I can suggest if you're trying to get sober or trying to get clean is that if you do relapse and it doesn't kill you, because that would be a problem. But if you do relapse, you can always start again.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't just because I messed up, just because I relapsed however many times, I always picked myself up and dusted myself off and then did the next whatever. And I think that's the important thing. I think a lot of programs in recovery have this mentality of like, you'll never ever drink again. And that wasn't really helpful for me. What helps me is I know that next time I relapse, like if I relapse again, that I'm never coming back.
Right.
And it's not to say that that will never happen. Like I don't have this thing of like, I'm never ever going to relapse again. I just know in myself that if I go out again, if I go out drinking again, that's the end for me.
Really?
Yeah. I will. It's a weird mentality to have. And that's why I just take it one day at a time, because I'm like, you know, but I do know myself well enough to know that if I drink again, I will drink until I die.
Wow.
I don't know how hopeful that sounds.
Yeah.
But it works for me.
Yeah.
And I think you've got to find what works for you. And whether you do something like AA or you go to drugs and alcohol counseling, I know we've got heaps of those services here in Logan, or whatever. Or I mean, I've tried all those things. I don't do any of them anymore. But you've got to find what's going to work for you. And for me, that happens to be that if I go out drinking again, I'm never stopping.
Wow. Good.
But you've got to find what works for you.
Yeah.
That's my last piece of advice.
Yeah. I liked it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So addiction for me was never just about substances. It was about survival, pain, protection, and eventually finding my way back to myself when substances started hurting instead of helping.
Recovery isn't neat. It's not a straight line or a single moment of clarity. It's messy. It's full of grief and questions and small wins that nobody else sees. But it is possible, and it doesn't have to look like anyone else's.
If this episode resonated with you or brought up something, we encourage you to reach out and talk to somebody you trust. You can also find us over on Instagram at Halfway to Healing with underscores under each of the letters, although the link is in the description. If you found this conversation helpful, please like, follow, subscribe, or share this episode with someone who might need to hear it. Your support helps us keep creating honest, shame-free conversations like this.
Thank you so much for being here and being brave enough to meet yourself halfway. I'll see you next time on Halfway to Healing. Have a good week, everyone.